Most people think merger and acquisition deal are just about buying or selling a company, which is a simple process. But in reality, it's a structured five-step process where investment bankers drive everything behind the scenes. If you're someone who's looking to get into investment banking and wants to work into merger or acquisition, understanding process of merger and acquisition like this will be part of building your foundation, because here interviewers are expecting you to think like a banker. So they might ask you a question like, what do you understand about merger or what is acquisition? So here they are not asking for definition of these terms, but what is the process of doing this merger or an acquisition? And at that time, if you don't have answer for it, then you might not be able to crack these interviews and get your role. So in this video, we'll discuss this entire five-step process, and we'll also take a real-world example of Zomato acquiring Blinkit so that you understand where this five-step process are applied and how it works in the investment banking industry. So hello there, my name is Karan Team. I am an ex-investment banker turned founder, and through Encoding Careers, we help you break into investment banking the right way. So let's get started with the five-step M&A process. And the step number one is understanding the deal type. So whenever investment bankers start working on any kind of deal like mergers or acquisition, fundraising, they sit with the clients and understand about the objective behind the deal, right? So here, if the company is looking to go for merger or acquisition, they might try to understand what are they trying to do. Are they trying to expand their business? Are they trying to enter a new market? Are they trying to acquire any capacity so that they could expand their own production ability, or are they trying to exit their entire business? Now based upon this, they are going to define whether this entire deal is going to be a buy side or a sell side mandate. Now let's understand these 2 points in detail. Now if a company wants to expand, they are going to look out for companies who are already there into this particular area. So if a business is currently into cloth making, right, and they are working upon cotton based products, now if they also want to expand into wool based product line, they would try to acquire a company that is already doing this woolen production of cloth rather than building their own capacity. So that's on expanding. If someone wants to enter a new market, so right now if we are targeting like regions of Gujarat and we want to enter the regions of Maharashtra, so we would try to acquire someone who's already in Maharashtra and then take over their capacity. Or if we are trying to increase our production ability, so we are going to acquire similar company who is doing similar production like us and then entirely take over and start production with our branding. If we talk about exit, then exit means if someone who is running the business, let's say like generations, and they now are tired of running this entire business, they might want to exit it. So here also investment banks can help them exit from this particular business and someone could acquire the entire thing. Now when these kind of things are decided, based upon it, buy side or sell side is understood. Now buy side means when your client wants to buy a particular company for expansion or entering new market, acquiring capacity. But when it's a sell side mandate, someone wants to exit the entire business. So this is the meaning of buy side versus sell side, and based upon that, the further processes are decided on how the entire deal will be executed. Now after this buy side and sell side is decided, then the timelines, the deal size and expectation of clients are set so that investment bankers understand how to execute this in the given time frame and what is the valuation that the client is expecting, right? So banker first understand the why before jumping on to how the entire deal will be done, because once they understand why someone wants to do the deal, the how becomes easy because it's the process that they need to follow. So now looking on to our example of Zomato acquiring Blinkit. So here, since Zomato was working only with restaurants, like serving and delivering food items to someone who's ordering, they were now looking to expand into different segments so that the revenue is not just coming from one particular area. And that is why they wanted to think how can they expand and diversify these revenue streams. So that's where they got a thought of expanding into this fast delivery ecosystem, and they were looking to buy a company who was already working into this. So this became a buy side mandate, and now they come on to step number two. So step number two in this entire five-step process becomes evaluation or target identification. Once the objective is clear why we want to do a deal, bankers start identifying potential target companies. So if it's a buy side deal, if your client wants to buy a particular company, then which companies can be bought is identified by investment bankers. And if it's a sell side mandate, that investment bankers are having, then their responsibility becomes to find good companies who could buy this particular company, right? So they are analyzing companies based upon strategic fit, like which company would fit the best for our client, if the financial performance are matching what the client is requiring. So for an example, let's take a buy side mandate, and our client tells us that we are looking out for a company who has a top line of 100 crores. Here our responsibility as investment banker becomes to find companies who have this top line of 100 crores and other criteria that would be mentioned by them. And finally, growth potential. So here we cannot give a recommendation of target companies which are not growth oriented. So that is something that investment bankers have to take into consideration whenever they are working on this evaluation and target identification. They also look for synergies of how the two businesses, when they are merged or acquired by one another, will work together down the line. Because at the end of the day, any business is going to acquire or merge with one another only if they see synergies. Let's assume that our client was already doing 200 crores of top line. Now, what synergies would mean over here is that when these two companies, the 100 crore company is acquired by this 200 crore company, at that time, the total revenue will not be 100 plus 200, that is 300, but it will be more than 300 crores, because now they can cross sell to one another's client, they can reduce their cost, and that's how their profitability and revenues might increase. So that is the meaning of synergy, and that is also something that investment bankers give a thought when they're working upon valuation modeling and all of these things. And after all of these evaluation, a shortlist is created and then it is presented to the client for their initial valuation thoughts. When this list is presented, the client would give that we are okay to buy this particular company at X valuation, and they give their recommendation on which company makes the most sense to acquire or to sell out to. So that is the step number two, target evaluation. Coming on to our example of Zomato acquiring Blinkit. So here investment bankers might have found like good companies that Zomato could acquire, and Blinkit would be one of the target companies that was identified. Now here, since the synergies match the best for Zomato, like they had very good synergy on delivery side. So Zomato could use Blinkit's entire delivery team for doing delivery of Zomato products as well, and also the user base. Now, once Zomato was acquired by Blinkit, we all saw that the application of Zomato showed the Blinkit button. So, someone who wants to order from Blinkit could directly go from Zomato. So, lot of Zomato users were directly going on Blinkit and ordering the fast moving consumer goods from there, led to increase in the revenue of Blinkit, and it eventually helped them to capture the market share. So overall market share was increased, the technology platforms were now integrated and helped one another, and it eventually led to expansion of Zomato's market share. So that was how the target evaluation is done based upon synergies. So until step number two, it was not a lot of execution that these investment bankers were doing. They were just working upon identifying what companies to work with, what is the why behind going the deal. Now, from step number three, that is negotiation, the entire work on deals process starts. So after step number two, once the investment bankers have given shortlisted target companies to the client, they will once again shortlist from that and give back to investment bankers saying that let's start having discussion with these companies. So here a letter of intent is shared with the players who are shortlisted by the client. Here letter of intent means LOI, which shows that we are interested in doing deal with you. Here in LOI, high level valuations would be discussed, deal structures would be mentioned, some of the control terms are mentioned on how the entire deal would take place, and this is not binding. That means that all the terms that are mentioned in this LOI can be changed up and down based upon discussions. So here multiple round of discussions takes place with investment banker, clients and target companies. So all of these people come together, they have lunch, dinners, and that's how they are having this negotiation process done. So this is where actually deals are shaped, where clients would give their input, target companies would mention their inputs, and investment bankers are the ones who are getting the entire negotiation done between the two parties and making sure that the deal goes through. Now coming to our example of Zomato and Blinkit, here negotiation on the valuation, on the structure of how the entire swap will be done, right? On how the financing of the deal would be done is also discussed in detail. So Blinkit at almost around $500 million at current price. So it was 4,100 something crores back when Blinkit was acquired, and the structure was swap deal. So now the shareholders of Blinkit got shares of Zomato when the entire acquisition was done. So it was not paid in cash to the entire shareholders of Blinkit. These all things are discussed while they are having this entire process. Now in this step number 3, investment bankers play a very important role, because most of the time the negotiation will come down to one point, that is valuation. And here investment bankers have to do a lot of study about the industry, what valuations were gotten in the past. They have to have very structured models which showcase how the entire valuation is derived. It should make logical sense. If it's a M&A deal, then entire M&A model has to be created, DCF has to be created, synergies have to be aligned, based upon which the entire deal makes sense. Valuation can be thoroughly discussed. Now, most of the time, the company that is going to acquire a target company will set a valuation that is very, very low, and the company that is going to sell its company will set the valuation high. So, let's take an example of Blinkit and Zomato. So, Zomato acquired Blinkit at 4,100 crores. Now, Blinkit would have quoted a valuation that is more than this. So, it would be almost 5,000. Let's take for an example 5,000 crore. And Zomato would have mentioned that we will acquire Blinkit at 3,000 crore. Now, it is the work of investment banker to negotiate between the two, that bringing both the parties to a middle term where the deal might go through. So then investment bankers might have had a discussion with Blinkit to bring down their expectation, asked Zomato to increase their payment capacity, and that's how 4,000 would have been decided. So that is on the step number 3, negotiation. Now we move ahead to step number 4, that is execution. Now this is the most intensive stage. Everything is verified before closing, and that's what execution means. Once both the parties agree on the terms of the entire deal for merger or acquisition, detailed due diligence process is going to begin. Due diligence, that means a detailed diligence is done on various aspects of the business. So here, when we are talking about merger or acquisition, the buyer wants to make sure that whatever company they are acquiring or they are taking over, that particular company is all truthful, and whatever they have shared with us is in real. So here financial aspects of the business are checked, legal risk related aspects are checked, operations and compliance are also thoroughly verified. So here bankers are going to coordinate with lawyers who check upon this legal and compliance related aspect. Consultants work upon financial due diligence, commercial due diligence, operational related. Then for the technology aspect also, since Blinkit was technology based platform, Zomato would have done the technology due diligence, how the entire platforms would be integrated, right, and other things, so that they are sure that when this deal gets done, maximum benefit of the other company that they are buying can be done, that the entire process of due diligence is done smoothly. They create these data rooms where all the parties share their data. So client would be sharing whatever is needed on their end, the target companies would be sharing their financial related information, legal related, operational related, to make sure that everything is aligned. And this is where the final valuation is done, the deal structure is finalized, and financing are locked in. So valuation, as I suggested, that was done in the third step, negotiation, where a lot of discussion was done. Then the deal structure of how the entire transaction would happen. For the case of Zomato and Blinkit, it was done in swap deal. That means the Blinkit shareholders got equity of Zomato's company, and that's how they sold the entire 100% company to Zomato. And finally, financing are locked in. So if some company is acquiring via debt, then here investment bankers would help them to raise this debt, and then this entire cash amount is paid to the target company, and they sell their entire company to the buyer party. So that is how financing are also done. So after these three things are done, finally regulatory approvals are also taken into consideration, and this becomes very important if a company is a listed one, because for listed companies there are a lot of approvals that they need to take to make sure that the acquisition goes through. Here the major approvals would be from SEBI, where they have to make sure that the SEBI is informed before they take any kind of actions on acquiring a particular company or selling out their stake to another. Then one more major regulatory approval is on CCI, which is Competition Commission of India, and they have to be informed that whenever we are acquiring company, it is not creating a monopoly. A monopoly is something where one business is controlling major aspect of business streams in that particular industry. For an example, IRCTC, like there's no competition for IRCTC where someone who's selling out tickets to off railway to people. So since it's government, there cannot be anyone who could take over and compete with IRCTC. In the private space, no one can become that monopoly. So that is what is taken care by CCI, and you have to take approvals from CCI so that your deal gets done smoothly. And finally, RBI has to also be involved if there are any NBFC related deals, or you are taking any debt financing or something. So that RBI also has to be involved. So these are the major ones. Other than that, if there are any regulatory that also are worked out by investment bankers within their network. So here for Zomato and Blinkit, due diligence might have been done for financial aspect, technology aspect, as we were discussing during the points, and the regulatory approvals. Then they move on to final stage of the deal. So step number 5, which is the final step, comes as integration. So after step number 4, which is on the execution, that is doing the entire due diligence. Once that is done, then both the parties agree on the deal, and after signing, now the focus is shifting from deal making to value creation. That is, now the company is being acquired, and it is the responsibility of this buying company to get value out of it. For this, most of the time, post M&A integration consultants are hired, where they help on doing this entire value creation from the deal. So after the deal is signed, both companies begin integration. Here the teams, operations and systems are aligned, so that now the company starts realizing the synergies. So synergies are also of two types: cost savings and revenue growth. So on the cost saving side, the company might start reducing the team size. So let's take for an example that company A has 200 employees, company B has 200 employees. Now once they are merged and acquired, they don't need 400 employees in total. Where they were needing 3 people earlier, now they can work in two. So they might start reducing the team size. So from 400 they might go to 300 in total, and that's how they are saving cost on the entire company, so that their profits could rise. And also on the revenue growth side, so earlier, if company A was doing 200 crore revenue, company B was doing 200 crore revenue. Now after merging or integrating with one another, they will not do 200 plus 200, that is 400, but the revenues will be more than 400 crore, because now they can cross sell to each other customers, client, and that's how they can increase their revenue. So at this stage, the role of investment bankers is quite low, but here the consultants work actually starts. So they are the ones who help them on how the team size can be reduced, how the operational elements can align. Technology related consultants are also hired, so that they could advise on how the systematic changes could take place in the entire application, or whatever they have on the tech side. So the deal success depends upon what happens after the deal, right? Here investment bankers worked upon everything to make sure that the deal goes through, and now the responsibility of the buying company, and after the deal, after acquisition, they need to make sure that the value creation gets done. So here for our example of Blinkit and Zomato, it was a major deal success, because both the companies integrated the entire delivery ecosystem very well. Some of these Zomato drivers were working with Blinkit drivers were working with Zomato, and that's how they were able to reduce the team size, and they were saving cost upon it. They cross leverage users, right? So as we said, that technology platform was integrated. Zomato had Blinkit direct option, so someone who wants to order can directly go to Blinkit, right? And that's how they were leveraging the entire user base and the logistic of the flow of the revenue. So this is where synergies were realized, and the deal was successful. So overall, recapping the entire 5-step M&A process, the deal starts by identifying the purpose and or the objective of why someone wants to go for this deal. Then investment banker starts identifying and evaluating target companies by understanding, is it a buy side or a sell side mandate. Then the terms are negotiated. Most importantly, the valuation is figured out. Then once the valuation is decided, terms are fixed, then the entire execution work starts with due diligence on various aspects, and finally the integration is done by post M&A consultants along with the buying and selling companies. So that's how the entire 5-step M&A process works. So example that we have covered is just one of many deals that happen in the industry. We have created a document for you where we have covered these 3 different M&A deal examples, where we have broken down each of the 5 steps, so that you could understand how transaction actually work in the industry. So it includes Zomato and Blinkit example, SMBC and Yes Bank, Baiju's acquisition of Akash, so that you could understand how this different industry play out on investment banking deals. So if you understood how the entire deal actually works in investment banking after this video, you're already ahead from most of the candidates trying to enter into investment banking. If you want more such deal breakdowns and practical investment banking insight, make sure that you subscribe, like this video, and also let us know your recommendation on what kind of videos should we create, and we'll keep decoding these kind of industry insights and deals for you. So that is it for this video. Until then, this is Karan taking your leave.